With Iovar just around the corner in about a month, I figure it's a good idea to rank all 16 of the lords in the game. There's a lot of them, as you can see, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to piss off a lot of people in this video, but I don't care. Let's get into it. So to kind of start off, I think we should be starting with something at the top of the ladder. Just kind of to set a baseline for what I think is godlike. And we're going to start with Praetus. So Praetus, for those of you who don't know, is probably the best unit in the game. He's godlike. As a unit, he's the best. As a lord, he's amazing. He just fulfills all the requirements. I will be ranking these all by both them as a unit and also their lord skills. So obviously if you're good at both, you're going to rank a bit higher. If you're really good at one and kind of suck at the other, you're going to be pretty good. But if you excel at both, you're going to be very high. And Praetus is the perfect example of that. He's really unique in a lot of ways. He has insane single target damage to the point where he's actually good in AoE settings. He's amazing. He buffs his units really well. He has built-in Soulbound Arcana. He can hit anywhere on the map without even being placed down. That's how insane he is. Praetus is debatably the best unit in the game. He's absurdly broken. Moving on though, let's just kind of go in order now, I think, or at least a rough order. And I'm gonna go with Aracha. So Aracha is kind of hard to rank, I would say. Aracha used to be up here. She used to be one of the best lords in the game, but lately they've been adding a lot of really good ones. So I think that alone brings her down. And then also, you would think she could be amazing, but I kind of think she's just great. I'm not entirely sure if I will be putting her amazing or great. I think she could kind of be either or, depending on how you look at it. Because Silas is amazing. Silas is broken. Hex is amazing. Aracha can boost them so well. Some of the best heroes in the game, giving extra range. It's absurd. But I don't really know if she's amazing anymore. I think she's probably low amazing is where I'm going to put her, purely because she boosts some of the best heroes in the game. But as a unit, she's not very good. But she is actually kind of decent as a unit in a couple areas. Gear 3, she could put out a little bit of damage, all that good stuff. But in Guild v Guild, actually, she's an amazing unit. So I think that solidifies her in amazing, and I'm going to leave her there. So Ajax is next. And Ajax, I know, is a fan favorite for a lot of people. But I'm putting him in all right. So the reason why Ajax is not much higher is just because, although Ajax is pretty decent in a lot of settings, he does decent damage in Gear 1. He can do okay damage in Gear 4, blah, blah, blah. He is kind of let down by a few things. One is he has no Lord skill. Sure, he gets Lord bonuses from everyone else, but the fact that he doesn't have a Lord skill and he's up against all these amazing Lords kind of brings him down a little bit. As a unit, he's pretty good, but it kind of brings him down. He used to be where I would consider him mid, but since he's usable in every faction, I think he's up. And also with Gear 4 and him being really good in Guild v Guild, I think he does get brought up. So I would put him like high to mid, all right. I don't think he's amazing. I don't think he's spectacular, but he's pretty damn good. Moving on though, we got Cyrus. And this is one where I think it can vary. It varies very heavily depending on if you think Guild v Guild is actually important, which I do. I love Guild v Guild. It's probably the most fun part of about this game for me. So I'm going to be rating him a lot higher than you might think, and I'm putting him in amazing, above Aracha. You might be thinking, but Cyrus isn't as good as Aracha. Aracha has a better Lord skill. It boosts more people. And to that I say, Cyrus, despite not maybe having as good of a Lord skill, I think is usable in more areas and is a lot more useful than Aracha is. So Cyrus is really good in Guild v Guild. He's one of the best tanks, pairs very well with other esotericists, and it's just overall cancer. He also has a really good Lord skill for esotericists, where when certain things die or get pulled, like Laurel, for example, if you pull Laurel, it'll trigger his Lord bonus. It'll give 25% extra damage. It's very strong. Boreas is still prevalent. Cyrus is still really good because of that, and also Comet is the best AoE mage in the game. So Cyrus is really good in Arena. He's really good in Guild v Guild. He's really good in Conquerors for just him doing a lot of damage and having really high range. His summons are really good. He's good in all sorts of things like Gear 1, Gear 4, everything like that. I think he's more versatile than Aracha, but I also don't think he's good enough in enough areas to justify him being godlike, although it's pretty damn close. I would say he's a amazing plus, basically. And Aracha's just kind of towards the bottom. Moving on, this is one that I know will piss off a lot of people. Demi is mid. So my eyes kind of got opened to Demi somewhat recently, where now I think she's actually pretty decent, but I still don't think she's alright. I think she's just mid. She's high mid. There are still a couple lords worse than her, but I don't think she's good enough in enough areas, and she's a little niche for me to justify putting her higher. She's really good in Gear Raid 4, sure, but she's still outclassed by Morrigan, who we will get to later. She has good anti-heal, sure, but the anti-heal, it takes a lot to get up. She doesn't do damage normally. Her slows are good, but her range is really lacking. And her Lord bonus is so much worse than Morrigan's, who is essentially her parallel. And her being Ancient exclusive also kind of brings her back. It's not something I'm ranking, but it's just, she's so rare, and she's outclassed by her other Lord, in my opinion. So she's mid. She's just not usable in everything, and she lets me down a little bit. Another letdown is Eldrr, though. Eldrr, this one's also going to piss off a lot of people. Eldrr is not good. Eldrr is bad. So the reason why Eldrr is not good is because of two things. Number one is he's part of a defensive faction, but does damage. So he doesn't do that much damage on his own, but his Lord skill makes other Northerners do damage. And the only Northerners that are going to benefit from that are Valkyria, who benefits perfectly fine from Harz, Ardea, who basically no one has, and Ghan is a lot better, who we will get to very soon. And Eldr's just not that good as a unit. You can build him tanky, use him in Guild v Guild a little bit, but it's very niche. You can build him tanky, and what else are you going to use him for? He's a fighter, he has lower blocks. If you build him tanky and he gets shields or whatever, he's not tanking that well, which is kind of the whole point of Northerners, and it's just kind of a big mess. I don't think he's that good. I think he is not the worst Lord, but he's pretty damn close. He's just, the way he operates essentially counteracts what his faction is trying to do, and Lords are supposed to strengthen their faction, not make them a little bit more lackluster. Though talking about strengthening your faction, Ghan is freaking insane. Ghan has been a top 3 Lord for forever. I personally, in my personal opinion, with the addition of a couple new Lords, I think is going to be outside of the top 3. I genuinely think he's the 4th best Lord now. But I think he's still so good that he's still godlike. He's one of the best Lords if you can get all the faction members. It is a little hard, which does bring him back a little bit, but I'm not ranking him based on difficulty to get those sort of things going. So he's part of a faction with some of the best units in the game. Sargak, he buffs like crazy. Ardea, he buffs like crazy. Cerberus, you know, like Carnelian. There's so many units in his faction that benefit so strongly with his Lord skill. He's a pretty good unit on his own. He's really good in like the tank codex and for all that good stuff. He has the highest block in the game on his ult. It's all around, he's just a really good unit, has the best team synergy, I think, out of anyone, even more than something like Praetus, but Praetus outclasses him still. Ghan is absurdly good. I cannot state how good he is properly, because he's just that good. Let me move Iovar to the back, because I think it's most interesting to talk about, and let's move on to Harz. So Harz, I think, is our first great, and let me explain why. So Harz is not someone you would have thought would be good. I previously would have put him in all right. If I'm looking here, I might put him in great because I just think he's that good. And that's because of a couple pieces of content that have been coming up recently. So Harz has become a lot better for things like Guild v Guild, not healer codex, tank codex. He's really good for Gear Raid 4, especially to boost your Valkyria. He's the best. He's better than Eldrr by far. You know, all of this stuff because he's tanky and he also buffs very well. He's a Northerner Lord. He's amazing when he has shields on, but he kind of falls off slightly otherwise, which is a little brutal. And he does have some glaring weaknesses, like without shields he's like paper and all that stuff. But overall, I think he's a great Lord, and I'm happy to put him in great. Moving on, though, is Laya. And this one also is a little bit hard to rank. I think I will also put her in great. purely because I think there's a lot of lords better. Laya is a pretty good unit. Laya is a really decent lord, but you don't really use Laya for her lord skill. Laya is probably one of maybe 2 lords that you will rarely see be used for her lord skill, because things like guild boss, you use her to cycle, build up rage, then you sell her, and she's really good for that sort of thing. She's one of 5 units in the game that give rage regen, those being Laurel, Hollow, Elwyn, Idril, and Laya. Idril does give a bit of rage. It's not a lot, but it does count. And that's essentially why she's good, because of her rage regen. But as a lord, she's not too crazy. She's a good healer, good rage regener, but not a great lord, is what I'm trying to say. And that's why I don't rank her very high compared to the other ones. Moving on though, we have Morrigan. So Morrigan is kind of a weird one. I know I kind of hyped her up when I was talking about Demi, but I still think she's only at the top of all right. I don't think she's good. I don't think she's good enough to be considered great. I think she is still worse than things like Harz and Laya. Although if you want, you could always swap Harz and Morrigan spots. I think that would be fine. They are pretty close, but I think for terms of balance, I would keep her in all right. Morrigan's really good for buffing her unit, her faction. She overall, if you pair all of her stat boosts together, she buffs like 70% damage or something to her cultist members. It's really, really strong. She can be used in Conquerors. She can be used in Grade 1. She's really, really good for Grade 4 and all of that stuff. But the reason why I don't have her higher is because I don't think cultists are that good right now. I'm hoping with the new limited, Dahlia, she will become better, but it is hard to say. Cultists are not in the meta right now, and we need something to come in and shake things up. Cultists are not good in enough areas of the game and with enough things to really justify her being good, so that's why she's so low. Moving on though is actually my second favorite character in the game, behind Cyrus, and I might be a little biased, but I have a reason for this. I think Solcadens is in a top 3 lord, and let me explain why. I think Solcadens is absurd. He's better than Twinfiend, who already is really good. We'll get to in a second. He does insane damage on his basic. He buffs his teammates very well. He has one of, if not the strongest ultimates in the game. His ultimate has like 500 rage or something, so he essentially spams it over and over and over and over again. He's part of the best guild boss faction, one of the best factions overall. He's the best lord from that faction, which says a lot. He can do insane damage on his ult. I did a takeover for someone where, with like no silver in their sauna stacks, a pretty mediocre set, or even just like a decent set, and not even a full infernal grouping, I did 10 million on one ultimate, and he's spamming that over and over again. Solcadens is the best, is like a top 2 lord for certain codex fights. He's amazing for guild boss. He's amazing for boss killing, which is one of the harder areas of the game. The reason why Silas is so good is because he does so much damage to bosses. But Solcadens does more damage, more DPS than even Silas, I think. Or at least it's pretty damn close. Solcadens is amazing. He's so good. He's good in so much content, and also does everything he's supposed to do insanely well. I'm really sad I don't have him. I will probably have a Solcadens guide on someone else's account, allegedly, in the future, so stay tuned for that, and that'll be a lot of fun. Solcadens though, I think is the 3rd best lord in the game. You might be thinking, hey, there's 2 lords down here that are really good, and you'll kind of see where I put them soon, don't you worry. Moving on though, I think it's best to go with Twinfiend. I should have done him before Solcadens, but I think Twinfiend is amazing. He can either be above Cyrus or below Cyrus. Twinfiend is essentially Solcadens 1.0, but he's nowhere near as good for a couple of reasons. One is he does multi-hits, not as good. One is he buffs his teammates, but him himself is not a great unit. He essentially buffs all his teammates, while Solcadens is a powerhouse of the unit and kind of does the same thing. So that's why Twinfiend's not as high. Twinfiend just kind of has a couple weaknesses, like lower range. He has but he's really good for guild to guild affiliation. Really good for just boss killing. Again, he's essentially Solcadens 1.0. Solcadens is better, but Twinfiend is close. This top 5 right here are all very close. Aracha is kind of a step down, and then a step down further below that. So these are all like S tier lords, but I think these are kind of the gold standard. Moving on though, we have Torodor. Sorry, and Torodor goes in the top of great for me. Torodor, the reason why Torodor is not that great is although he's a decent unit and his Lord skill is pretty good, I think that Nightmare teams are just not meta for enough content to justify it. And while they are very, very good, I think Torodor just kind of falls flat where a lot of other Lords succeed. So something like Guild Boss, Torodor is the third best Lord, or the third best faction Lord after Aracha, Iovar, Solcadens, and Twinfiend, so Infernals and Piercers. Infernals being the best, Piercers being second, and then Torodor being third. If Nasaltbug was still around, he would probably be the best, but he's not, so it's okay. Torodor is also really good for certain things, like he can be used in the Frost Codex, he can be used in the Conqueror's Codex, he can be used in stuff like Guild v Guild. He is part of the best Guild v Guild team, which I have a video on if you want to go check that out. And he's pretty good, but overall, I think he just falls flat where a lot of these guys succeed. Like Aracha is more versatile and has better units to boost. Twinfiend and Solcadens are so much better as units and also boost really well. Cyrus is an amazing unit, has more versatility, you know, stuff like that. Ghan, amazing. Praetus obviously is inarguable. Stuff like that. So I think Torodor just falls flat where those guys succeed. Moving on though is one that's actually going to piss people off. I'm so sorry to everyone who loves Valderon. Hot take, Valderon is not that good. Like, honestly, I put Valderon here. Straight up. I would put him below Twinfiend.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So, hear me out, guys. Hear me out. Valderon is not that good because of a couple things. I have a couple reasonings for this, which is why he's not amazing, and you might not hear me out, but I have to speak my truth. Valderon has a couple really strong flaws that a lot of these units are not having. Like, if you look at all of these lords, no lord above great has the same flaws that he does, but he still is a pretty good unit. So Valderon, the reasons why he's not good at all for certain content is, first of all, his range is low. He has 1 tile range, which is criminally low. The only other lord to have that is Eldrr, who is supposed to do melee damage. Like, obviously the tanks have 1 range too, but they're supposed to tank. Valderon is for damage. Valderon does crazy damage if he can hit the units, but a lot of the time he just can't because he's missing the range. He cannot hit air, and also when he dies, he gets worse. So, although he's a good unit, I've seen him do 5 million damage, but that's if you have an insane amount of support. Like, you gotta use Durza, you gotta use Valderon. It's a mess to get like 5 million damage in a hit, and even that is circumstantial, while Solcadens can do 10 million in a hit or more casually in the content that he's designed for. Valderon is not good enough in enough content. He's not that great in Guild Boss. He's outclassed. He's not that good in Guild v Guild. He's not that good in a lot of things. He's really good in Conqueror's Codex, is I think the best thing that he's there for. But there's not enough melee-centered content where you would need people with less range. A lot of the good fighters in this game have a lot of range. Valderon also falls flat compared to Ghan. I think he is worse because he does not buff his units, his teammates very well. And Valderon just, he doesn't do stuff as a lord very well. As a unit, he's good, but you have to have certain special circumstances, which are very rarely going to happen in this game, especially with the newer content coming out, to reach his full potential. And overall, just, he falls flat. Like, there is no other way to put it. He does not do the things he's supposed to do. That's why he's not that good. I put him a little higher than Aracha, just because in the things he does excel at, he does better. And Aracha is a terrible unit. But, I mean, you could have Aracha over Valderon. I might just leave it like this, because I think Aracha boosts so many good units, while Valderon kind of barely boosts other units, but it mostly boosts himself, and him himself is not doing that much. So that's why I have him a bit lower. I know Fastidious' website, as much as I think most of the hero rankings are accurate, I think the one shortcoming is Valderon should be like A+ or something. I don't think he's even S, and I know that's an insane thing to say. Maybe you could have him like S- or something. I don't think he's that good. I think people are overrating him, overhyping him. I don't think he's that good. Moving on though, someone that no one is overhyping is Venoma. Venoma is the worst lord in the game. Hands down, it is not close. Venoma is both the worst lord as a unit by far, And also, Venoma is not that good for a Lord bonus. Like, she boosts Esotericis, which are pretty good right now. They were better when Boreas was better, so I would have put her in alright if Boreas still had his buff. But Venoma just, apart from Arena in the past where she was good because Boreas was so broken, now she doesn't really have that many slots that you could use her. She's decent for boosting Esotericis, really good for AoE content, so Geared 1 and stuff. But all of these other units kind of do the similar things where they boost in their respective content pretty well. So she's essentially like a mediocre Lord bonus. Her Lord bonus is only on deployment. It does not last throughout the whole game. And it just kind of, once again, falls flat a little bit. So I don't think anyone will really argue that Venoma is the worst, or at least close to the worst, and I think she belongs there. Moving on, the star of the show, Iovar, and I think Iovar is the second best Lord in the game. Straight up. I think there's a very good argument to be made that he's top 4. I think he is top 2 for a couple of reasons. One is he's probably a top 3 Lord as a unit in the game, if not like top 5 at the minimum. He does really high damage. I've seen him be used in stuff like the Pelagius boss and Forerunner. He's Silas level for that in terms of damage. He does a ton of damage. He's essentially Aracha if Aracha had good damage output and was also a platform unit, which I honestly think is more valuable for a lot of content in this game. And all around, his Lord bonus is about Aracha level. It does take a bit longer to build up, but he is really good for boss content, which is essentially what piercers are made for, is high single target damage. He is really good for a lot of content, especially a lot of upcoming content. Piercers are a top 3 faction in the game, in my opinion. And overall, just Iovar is insane. He does crazy damage. He boosts crazy amounts. He's overall just a perfect Lord. He's a perfect Lord. There is very little chance you are going to get anything better than Iovar. Of course, this tier list is subjective. Opinions are opinions, and they may change. This is my final tier list for all the Lords. I think this is pretty accurate. If you don't agree, please comment down below why not. But keep it civil. It is still all subjective once again. There is no bad Lord in this game. You can find uses for all of them. And overall, just, it's up to you. It's about what you use. But I think this is a pretty good tier list to have. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can agree with some of these takes. Sorry to every Valderon enjoyer in the game. My bad. So that's about it for me. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, helps me out a ton. And that's about it for me. Destined, signing out.